Welcome, everybody. I'm pretty excited for this episode, the third episode of Stub Luv Live. We have an awesome guest that is going to be on tonight. That is David Ratliff from Signed and Slabbed fame. David is one of literally the greatest names in the sports card and sports memorabilia business today. I don't see David on yet, so just let's give it a minute since we're just a hair early. But David is totally awesome. Great collection of sports and celebrity and political memorabilia, and also has a phenomenal ticket collection. So let's give it another second or two and see if we can get David to come on board. Man, look at all these people that are on here. All the biggest names in ticket collecting. Big stuff. Man, I even got my son in here. My son is watching live. He's 14 years old, and he started to become a ticket collector. He's calling me and texting me from school about tickets that are popping up on eBay. And I keep telling him, hey, dude, go back to class and stop going on eBay and stop spending my money. Oh, I see that Signed and Slabbed has joined. We just now need him to ask to be in the live, and we will be good to go. Here we go. And there he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Signed and Slabbed, David Ratliff. Wow. I'm excited to have you on episode 3 of Stub Luv Live. How are you, my man?
I'm good. How are you? It's cold down here. It's like,
Is it?
Yeah, man. It's like freezing in Houston. That's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, right now it's probably like 80 in South Florida where I live. So.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
I feel bad. Sorry. So for the people who are watching, the ticket collectors that are watching, who don't know David, David's just got a wealth of knowledge about sports memorabilia, but he also collects political memorabilia, celebrity memorabilia. He was an autograph chaser back in the day when you were younger. So give us a little bit of information about you and who you are for those who don't know, because this is big to have David on. David is a name in this community.
So yeah, I started like a lot of people in the hobby. I just started collecting cards. I guess I would like the first cards I really remember are '83 Topps baseball. So I would have been about 10, and I'm a big baseball fan. I mean, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little more as we go. I like all of it, but baseball is kind of where I started, so that's always tends to be how I return. Um, but after I went to college at Baylor, and I grew up in Arkansas, so like my main team at the time was the St. Louis Cardinals, but then I obviously knew about, a lot about the Cubs and the Braves because they were the only thing that was on TV during that time. And, like any sort of 80s kid, Michael Jordan was a big impact in terms of just expansion into the basketball world. And so when I went to college at Baylor, in Waco. I was still doing cards. Kind of got into Cowboys stuff during that time, and then after I graduated, moved to Houston, and have been here ever since. And when I moved to Houston, is really when the autograph phase kind of started taking off for me. So as you mentioned, I, would do a lot of in-person chasing it at hotels and parks and the baseball parks and the basketball arenas and that kind of stuff.
Biggest in-person autograph you ever got, and biggest refusal or person that you desperately wanted and never got.
Um, so I'll tell the first story. This is my favorite story because it's actually one of my favorite players. So when Barkley got traded or signed by the Rockets, um, I I chased him down. I followed him from practice one day over near the Galleria, and because there was a big and tall store over there, so like I kind of had a feeling that might be where he was going. Saw his car in the parking lot. So anyway, I waited for him to come out of big and tall and asked him to sign something for me, and he looked at me and before he grabs the pen and he says, did you follow me over here? And I'm like, yes, Charles, I did. I'm a big fan and I want to get an autograph. And he says, all right, I'll sign it for you, but if you ever follow me again, I'll kill you. And he signed and got in the car and took off. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's a good story.
I mean, like biggest refusal. I mean, most of the guys were pretty good about signing him. I could punt this to Jordan never signed anything for any of us. Would tell us to get jobs and stuff like that. Um, John Stockton was always like he would, no, thank you, no, thank you. So I'm actually excited about him because he's doing a private signing next week. I've got
Yeah.
2 items going in for that. But from an in-person standpoint, he was always hard. Well, not hard. He was impossible. Um, I guess it was somebody. It wasn't really a refusal. It was almost just like bad luck. I never got Shaq in person,
Mm.
but a fun story on him. I had sent in something to a private signing of his. This was 10 years ago or more now, but it had like a post-it on it with my name and address and phone number. And so I'm with my family at like an orange leaf having frozen yogurt or whatever. My phone rings and it was from somewhere in California. And like I knew that the signing was that day. And so I answer the phone because, I'm worried. You don't know if there's something wrong with your item or what. So I answer the phone, hello. And on the other end, I hear this deep voice. Is this David Ratliff? And I start laughing. I'm like, yes, I instantly know who it is. And he goes, David, this is Shaq. I'm here signing your stuff. I'm gonna hook you up. So
Really
that
cool.
was neat. The promoters had told me he does. He would do that a lot.
Really
He
awesome.
random stuff out of it, had phone numbers on it, and call people. Anyway, that was pretty
That,
cool.
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So let's get into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little tickets. How and when did you start collecting tickets?
So on the ticket front, so I've always, and you can tell this, as you look at sort of how I collect everything. I always kept my ticket stubs. So like this goes all the way back. I had a few like even from like the Baylor football games that I went to in college. But when I moved to Houston in '95, my brother and I had Astros tickets, and like I kept all those stubs. If I ever went to Rockets games, I kept that kind of stuff, and so because Barkley was here too, I was sort of keeping any and everything. And the Rockets had just won the title right before I got here. Um, and so like I always kept stubs for all that stuff. Now, in terms of like, let's call it the collecting side, um I probably picked up my first like PSA slabbed ticket. I would I would guess around maybe 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. Again, I had some ticket stubs of some different things, but I wouldn't really call it collecting. It was much more selective and more like kind of personal things to me at that time. So, I mean, I think it's been a good 4 or 5 years at least that I've sort of been interested in more the collecting aspect of the tickets.
Um, what was that first ticket that you picked up back in those days? You remember that first PSA ticket?
Yeah, like I'm certain whichever one of these it is, like I still have it. Um
Wow.
because my ticket collecting, you'll see like some of the stuff that I share is pretty is almost like it's oddly specific in some ways. Um you know my guess is that it was it's not a guess. I'm certain that this is true. It would have been one of the Super Bowl tickets. Um, because those were the ones that I distinctly remember early on thinking these are cool. These are something that appeals to me as a set collector of things, where it's you can kind of tinker with like upgrades over time, but every year there's something new that you're able to add to your collection. And I like that idea a lot because it sort of keeps you in the game, even when maybe you're not as focused, trying to run things down. That it always gives you a reason to come back to have stuff like that. So I'm certain it was one of the probably first 5 or 10 Super Bowl tickets would have been my first kind of purchase.
So I've seen on your eBay page, Sign and Slabbed, and I've seen you on your Instagram post. You have some high end tickets. You've got some really good stuff. Before we kind of get into that, is there a cheap or fun ticket that you have that's slab that you would never sell just because it's something that's meaningful to you?
Yeah, there is, and let me. I'm digging out from my box. So just
I hear the slabs clacking.
all right. So I can never. Anytime I get to be on these things, and so I'll apologize to you in advance if it hurts your feelings, but um, I can never pass up an opportunity to mock the New York Yankees fans. And so this is a ticket that I absolutely love. It's not super expensive, doesn't mean much of anything to anyone except in Houston. But here we have a stub from the June 11th, 2003 game between the Yankees and the Astros, where 6 Astro pitchers no hit their butts in their home stadium. So
It's a great ticket.
anyone who believes that the Yankees owning or that the Astros owning the Yankees only started when we started winning World Series, that's false. Um, it was much earlier than that, but I like that kind of stuff. Obviously, from following me that like I like a lot of the kind of Houston related things. So anyway, this one's actually a fun one because it's got like has Mantle on there, David Cohn, Joe DiMaggio, your World Series perfect game. Anyway, this is
Stick it to
perfect.
the Yanks big time there. Yeah, that's cool. I also see that it's not slab, David. Any reason why?
I just haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Which is
Okay.
I do that all the time. You'll see. I I cheap out sometimes of putting some of these things in slabs. But part of the reason I do that with some of these, as you know, I tend to get stuff autographed. And so if it's something that I think I could ever get signed, uh, I will hold it back until that happens, and then slab it after that.
I'm
So
the
I,
same
yeah,
way. Same way. I've got a lot of slab tickets, but I got a couple of boxes of
yeah,
raw tickets. I'm just waiting for signings. You know, sometimes I kind of feel like maybe I'll never get them signed, but I still haven't sent them in yet. But I'm the same way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the focus of your ticket collecting, Houston, do you have like Baylor tickets or specific moments in Baylor football or
So
basketball?
uh, the Baylor, and that was actually a good idea. Maybe I should have dug those out. I wrote it down, and then I didn't think. I know exactly where that stuff is. Um, I have almost all of the ticket stubs from Baylor's bowl games, going
Really
all the
cool.
way back, to the first one they would have went to in like the maybe 40s or 50s.
That's awesome.
And I tell people all the time, like, if you're a college alum and you're looking for like a fun thing to collect, I think the bowl game tickets and programs is like a great way to go. I mean, unless you're like UT or Alabama where there's like, 40 of them. With Baylor, it was pretty manageable through around 2015 or so, and then like we kind of started going to bowl games a lot more regularly. So like that collection sort of grew fast year over year. But I like doing those, especially now that, the entry into the events is mostly digital. So to the extent that that's true, you do kind of end the run with that stuff. But I just think, like, as an alum, that it's a fun thing to put together. And I mean, I think people would be shocked how few of these schools actually have that stuff. So I know my brother and I'm pretty sure have a complete collection of programs and tickets, and maybe pennants, because I collect pennants for Baylor
Wow.
too. I think we may have a complete collection of that stuff going all the way back. So, but the college tickets are awesome because you can, like, Orange Bowls and Sugar Bowls, and again, depending on who your team is, like there's some, like, if I was an Ohio State fan, I would totally be trying to run down all of their bowl game tickets, because especially some of those old Rose Bowl tickets they're just magnificent tickets.
Pieces of art.
Yeah,
I agree. Awesome.
are.
Um, so I know you're a big President First Pitch ticket collector. Did you bring those with
I
you tonight?
I brought a few. I don't have all. I didn't bring all of them because it's a big stack, but I do have a few, and they're good to sort of talk about, and you can help fill in
Yeah.
some of the information just around like some of the nuances of collecting this kind of stuff. So, um, sorry.
Let's see them. Let's
All
see
right,
them.
so I'm going to start with the first one just because I think it's one that people instantly sort of recognize, and this in my mind is the most well known and most popular first pitch ticket is your 2001 World Series President Bush.
You know, I have to tell you, David, I was thinking about a few events in the world of sports, and that event to me is so underappreciated. And I think that ticket is an amazing ticket, and I think it's underappreciated in the ticket market. I really do. It's an awesome
Yeah,
ticket.
and so one of the things I like about it is, you do have this sort of, you have this moment in time where I think everybody is sort of cheering the same thing, right?
Agreed. Agreed.
And the other thing that I like about it though is it's not so rare that you can't kind of locate it if you're patient and willing to do a little bit of work. And then the other thing that I kind of, and so I have a second one too. So this is the one that I think you normally see. It's the bigger ticket.
Mm-hmm.
This is a stub. I think that there's another. I think there was another piece on the fulls that are at the bottom, because I have a second stub of this one that doesn't have that piece there. So it just depended on where they tore them. And then I also had, and I picked this up, recently, not too long ago. It's like the smaller
Mm-hmm.
version from the field. And it was funny when I did a vote on my stories, and in the end, I really thought people would go for the bigger ones, and they didn't. They it was like 65% preferred the smaller tickets, and I couldn't decipher if that was just the symmetry of the holder or whatever. But anyway, I love this ticket in any form. It's one that I think, if you're trying to kind of break in to the ticket game and get something that's always a conversation starter, or something that, like, when you tell people what that ticket is for, that don't collect tickets, like, it evokes an emotion. So that, I think that's pretty cool.
And the Yankees lost that World Series
Yeah,
too, by
yeah,
the way. So it makes
yeah,
it even better. So
yeah.
what else?
Very
What else you got
right.
there?
So I also have here. Oh, so this is my oldest ticket. This is from Game 3 of the 1925 World Series, and like a bozo, I'm forgetting. I think that Calvin Coolidge
It is
probably threw out the first pitch at this. So when you see any of the images of presidential first pitches, I think this is a Coolidge game, and it also, it's a good lesson for people out there. You have to tell them. So someone else who did this just, had it labeled the information about the game. I can send this back and get them to modify that bottom line, I think, to say Calvin Coolidge first pitch, which is the plan. But look, in another year, this ticket's going to be 100 years old. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So this is my oldest ticket,
awesome.
and then
It's a great one.
my another one that I like. So this is one I picked up late last year. This is Game 2 of the 1936 World Series, and so beyond just the presidential first pitch component of this is the history of tickets that I really love. This is the most runs ever scored in a World Series. I think the Yankees scored 18
Wow.
runs uh, that 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 game, um, if I remember correctly. So anyway, this one will be in a slab. It'll be in my next slab order. But I really do like the World Series tickets. So I'm on the lookout for the ones that had presidential first pitches that I don't have. Because I think the first one is like 1914 or 15 was sort of the first. It was the first time a president was actually at a World Series, which PSA will put that on there too, even if it's not a first pitch. Like they have access to records, so do we, obviously. But you can go back and look, and it'll say President whoever was at the game. But that's what I'm looking for, and it's a pretty difficult ticket to find,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, I know what you mean. So you got a couple more there that you can show us, and then we'll hit you with a couple more questions. Then we'll have you run the gauntlet, and we'll have a little fun.
All right, so that's my presidential stuff. Another kind of sort of PC guy for me. Um, Roger Clemens is one of my favorite players. So I have the first 20 strikeout game in Major League history.
Really cool, yeah.
Several of these, but then I also have his 3,300 game. Um,
Really cool, yeah.
I like that kind of stuff, and then I also have, well, I like Houston related things. So I got a few here. Your first Super Bowl in Houston, signed by Larry Zonka. The next sort of modern Super Bowl, which was Brady's second Super Bowl, but I have that signed. And then I've got like I think this was the 89, yeah, 89 NBA All-Star game signed by Karl Malone. And then one that I know you appreciate a lot, your game of the century with Elvin and Kareem. I recently had added the Kareem at the National. So I like collecting that sort of Houston related stuff. And then we had talked about stuff I'd picked up recently. Here was a 94 finals ticket that I got autographed by Kareem, and then a 95 that I got autographed by Hakeem and Clyde. Which no one's ever been able to exactly tell me why, like for whatever reason, 94 and 95 Houston finals,
Can't find them.
they're just ghosts, and
Yeah.
I've never heard a great reason why. So anyway, but that so again, you've got the presidential stuff, Houston related stuff, and then a couple more I'll talk about again here a little bit.
Okay, so any tickets that you regret selling, David, that you're like, shit, I should have held
Yeah,
on to that one.
so I think back about it, and I not really, and part of it is because I don't normally sell my tickets unless I have dupes. And in most of my ticket collecting, I've actually tried really hard not to have duplicates unless it was stuff that I was getting autographed that, wouldn't be that hard to replace. Um, but I was trying to think back, like, did I ever have something huge that I sold and now I'm sort of like, how would I ever get it back? I really don't think so.
Okay.
I I hold on to almost all of my tickets. And again, particularly after they get autographed, like it's really hard for me to part with them unless I have dupes. When I have dupes, when you see me selling stuff, that's usually what's going on.
Anything that you can recall from your ticket collecting where you found some mega treasure that you bought for a couple bucks and the seller just didn't know and you got some kind of a grail ticket?
So and again, this would like to other people. I think this will be. It's kind of a dumb one, and like when we get into underrated, overrated, I'm gonna contradict myself.
Hmm.
But this is a Ticketmaster ticket to Clyde Drexler's first game with the Rockets. So when I started, trying to find stuff that, again, sort of personal or something that I cared about or Houston related, and we'll talk about debuts, I'm sure, in a minute. But I was like, where the heck would you find like Clyde's first ticket? And I look it up, and it was a random game in Charlotte. And when I read about it, they're like, weren't even sure he was going to play because he hadn't really practiced with them. But at some point, they just threw him out there. And Clyde's at the Fitterman
Yeah,
shows from time to time. I got him to sign that, but I think I paid like $2 for this ticket. The seller just had it out there as random
that's
Hornets,
great.
Rockets. Yeah. Um, and I'm sure I've had some others that are similar to that. And like, this is true. It's one of the things I actually like a lot about the ticket space, especially when you get sort of pre 2000s, is like doing the research yourself to hunt them down is such a big part of it,
It's
right?
huge.
And if
Yep.
you're and I think that appeals a lot to people who are more sort of historians of the sports and the games, which gives you sort of the advantage in terms of people that are just like selling stuff, and so
It's all about the hunt, isn't it,
yeah,
David?
right.
Yep.
Yeah, like I've never had much of these things just like necessarily fall in my lap. It was just when you look at auctions or and not even just eBay auctions, right?
Mhm.
Auction houses they're getting better at telling you some of this stuff, but like a lot of my presidential first pitch stuff just got sold as like a senator's
Yep.
opening day or something, and people didn't really they weren't really fully aware of exactly what it
Yep.
was. So I think that those things happen pretty frequently. And then obviously when you get into it deeper and you understand the makeup of some of the tickets and the different, what's a stub, what's a full, and kind of understanding some of those pieces, especially from like the 50s era, and earlier, those things are helpful too in your search. But yeah, in terms of lucky, like, you know, you if you look for enough stuff, you can almost always kind of find something to luck into, or that seems like a pretty good value, I think.
I think about this all the time, that there's so much gold sitting on eBay right now
Yeah,
that none of us know about. We just don't know about it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's there. If you just do the research, you never know what you're finding. It could be sitting on eBay for years and no one
right.
even knew about it.
And even then it's like, because the descriptions don't help you, so
They
you
don't.
have to, some of your typical, like, it's hard to apply the same concepts, for doing save searches like I do with cards into tickets, because sometimes people don't put both teams, they don't always put the year,
Hmm.
they like, so you really do, it is like digging for gold in this sea of stuff. But when you find the thing that kind of appeals to you, every time I get out there and start doing some of my more, specific type searches of things maybe I'd been thinking about, or didn't necessarily collect, like I'll always run down a handful of things. I'm like, for $5 and $10, you're like, yeah, why not? Like, this
Yeah,
is cool. Or it's got some sort of story to it, like, even if I'm not the last guy that's going to own it, like, just trying to buy it and get it circulated into this world can be important, versus it just sort of sitting there unknown, right?
I agree. I agree. And you know what? Some people are better at it than me, a lot better at it than me, and they'll find the story for me, and I
Yeah,
buy into the story. I'm like, I wish I would have
right,
found that. That's a great
right.
story.
Yeah,
I
no,
want that.
I see those all the time, and we both know Ravel, like, he does that stuff beyond the sports world. Sports is a little easier to do because there are box scores and things like that, but guys like him will, like, they'll dig through old newspaper clippings and microfiche and crap to figure out, like, the Beatles played a show in Fort Lauderdale or something, right?
I know. Yeah.
He'll find that ticket in some random online auction, win it for like $40, and I mean, it could easily be like a $500 to $2,500 ticket. You
Sure.
just don't know, because a lot of times some of that stuff's not even slabbed yet. So
True.
it's just awareness and then the storytelling
Yeah.
of it. So
Good stuff. Good stuff.
yeah,
All right. Let's run the gauntlet, David. These you don't know these questions. They're kind of fun. All met in good fun. So, stub or full?
for me, it depends on the era. So if we're talking more modern, which I'm gonna peg modern ticketing at around maybe 2010 or so. Maybe as old as 2000, but certainly 2010 and up, I'd want the full. Prior to that, and especially when you get back into the 90s and older, I take whatever I can get. So stubs are fine, because that's usually all you're gonna
True.
find.
True. PSA, Beckett, or no slab on your tickets? What do you prefer?
Strong preference for PSA. I don't like the Beckett slabs. They're too bulky. I kind of like that Beckett will let you do a little bit more on the label. However, I caution against some of that, because you lose the commonality between, so you could have two tickets at Beckett look exactly the same and be slabbed completely different. I think that that's massively confusing in the market. So a pretty strong preference for PSA. I don't mind, loose tickets, for certain things, especially things that are maybe more personal or lower dollar value. I don't believe everything needs to live in a slab. If it's a pretty common ticket that's like $20, why you'd ever pay $30 to slab it up, I have no idea. I
I
don't even
agree.
care if I might rate out of 10. Like, and I guess I'll add that to, well, I think the great of tickets is sometimes just monumentally foolish, but
Yeah.
what that's just
I,
me. Who cares what? Who cares if it's a 3 or a 7? Like, does it look good? And for me, tickets are a whole lot more story, a lot of times than they are just artwork.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, David. Good points. Good points. Um, Debuts or moments?
This is simple. Moments by far. You knew I was going to say
I agree.
that. I think debuts are the most overhyped, ridiculous thing in the ticket space. And while and I do understand, I've gotten into this argument with other ticket collectors frequently. I do understand the rarity of some of the different guys and their debuts, but the argument that somehow that debut has any relevance to me as a sports fan is completely lost on me. I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way. Tickets and rookie cards are not the same things because tickets don't represent an entirety of like a season or a year or a cycle of time. It's a one time, one day, normally one day type of event, which I think makes it very, very different in terms of a collectible.
You know, I'm a moment guy, but I do collect some debuts, and I do understand the theory and the thoughts that some debut collectors have that debuts themselves are really moments, are truly moments, and many of them are.
Yeah,
But I get it. I get where you're coming from.
yeah. Like the LeBron debut is one that I think of where it makes a lot of sense. Wimby's debut, and there may be a bunch of them, but like that's something that I kind of get. Even some of the baseball guys, like I know when Jason Dominguez had his first start here in Houston, people were going berserko trying to get those tickets because the Astros had pretty much just gone fully online, and you couldn't like buy them at the box office. So I understand and I get the appreciation, like I said, for the vintage stuff. Those things are astronomically rare in most
Yeah,
cases. I just don't know how relevant they are in anybody's mind because no one, most of us didn't see that or would have even been aware of it if you were there, like exactly what was happening. It's just like oh, there's a new guy playing for us. Great.
yeah. But I mean, again, if you don't know what's going to happen and you kept it,
Yeah, for
it's super rare.
sure. The
Yeah,
rarity aspect of it absolutely, makes sense to me. Why that would be pretty coveted, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, I know the answer to this one: signed tickets or unsigned tickets.
If I can get it signed, I'm getting it
I know
signed.
you are.
I There's no reason not to in my mind. Like it adds another layer of depth to your collectible, in my opinion. I know there are people out there who still sort of ascribe to the idea that somehow it ruins the ticket, and they're 1,000% wrong on that.
I agree with you. Would you rather have a PSA 10 ticket or a PSA Pop 1 ticket?
Um, I would rather have the PSA Pop One. Like I said, I'm highly indifferent toward ticket grades. That for me, it's never been a motivator at all. And again, because I don't think tickets are the same as like the registry sets. 'Cause obviously, some of these tickets that I think all of us would like to collect, I mean, they don't even exist in high grade, right? So this like, oh, I've got the highest graded PSA 3 from the 1915 World Series. So what, man? There's like, there may only be 15 of them. Who gives a crap?
I know.
Like,
I
it's
agree.
just rare, right?
I agree. I agree. All right. So you're a Baylor alum.
Yep.
Which do you hate more, Texas burnt orange or TCU purple?
TCU purple by far. But shout out to my buddy Judd, who may see this. Well, I do have a couple of TCU friends, but it's difficult sometimes to be friends with the Hypno Toad crew. But TCU by far. Uh, and now that the Longhorns are moving out of the Big 12, we don't have to mess with them anymore. Baylor football has more wins in the last 10 years. I think we had more wins than they did until this season. So, for what that's worth.
Who's the cooler Baylor alum, Rand Paul or Brittany Griner?
Oh God. Um, I'm gonna go with Brittany. Just our women's national championship teams were a big deal, and I'm kind of I'm proud of that at Baylor, having both the basketball teams had been national champs at some point. So I'll go with her.
Okay. Who would win in a slap match, you or Patrick Ryan?
I think it would be me for sure.
Why? Why?
That's not quite as like I can get to be pretty hateful. So
You.
I yeah, now I for me and Pat to ever get in a slap match, something would have to go like drastically wrong. So, but if it were, slapping each other, I think I'd probably win. But definitely, if it was one of us slapping someone else, it's me for sure. I can be a lot more hateful than Pat. Pat's a pretty giving guy. It's
So
hard
follow
to do that to most people. Uh,
follow up. Slap match, you or VVG Club?
oh man, uh, VVG and I have had a special relationship. We go back and forth we've gone back and forth on some various things. Um, one thing I can say is the more and more I get to know some of the different collectors, I never really doubt the passion,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
And I think that we share that trait. Um, where I tend to wade into those waters, though, is when I kind of feel like that some of the collecting advice that's being given out is being driven too much from the investment side of things. I think that can be quite perilous, especially for people that are coming in new and haven't, don't really have a good foundation of having collected much of anything. And you hear me say all the time, like, if you're if your love for your collectible is entirely tied up in its value, I think you're missing it. And your ability to tell and share the story and share your collection suffers because of that. And like, for me, that's more of the value of my collection, is ability to share it and talk about it with other people, and why I think it is significant beyond like how much it may be worth. That is a very, very low driver for me for most of what I do.
I,
um,
I understand that. You can tell, and I understand. So I'm going to ask you one last one, but that was a really good note to kind of end on. But I'll ask you an easy one. This is the biggest softball of the night. Who's got the best hair in the hobby?
Oh, it's me, I think, at this point by far, because I won't get a haircut. I need a haircut bad, and I don't know what people are gonna do if I get one. But yeah, right now I don't. Is there anybody who else is out there competing? Like, for a while, Shay had some good hair going on, but then he got popped for maybe not doing some cool stuff with some auctions. Uh, and there was somebody else who had
No,
some pretty well. I,
it's
I'm like,
David. It's you. It's you by far.
Roth has some good hair going, but he should. That dude's like, 26 or 28. So like he should have a bunch of long hair. When you get in your 50s, I'm pretty much by myself with this stuff.
Well, David, I really appreciate you coming
Hey,
on.
do
Um,
we have like 2 more
yes.
minutes? I've
Yeah.
more that I'd love to
Yeah.
show it
Sure.
if it's okay.
Sure. Sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
because and it was going back to your list. You know, we talked about overrated a little bit, debuts wildly overrated. Underrated tickets. I'm gonna submit that some of the most wildly underrated tickets in the ticket hobby right now are Olympic tickets. And here's
I
why.
agree. Yeah.
All right. So I have two of the Jesse Owens, two of the four. It's impossible, as you know, to find the 100-meter finals without paying an arm and a leg. But I mean, these tickets, guys, they came from Germany, for crying out loud, and they came in these cool booklets and stuff. So, like, I think that's big. Um, the Olympics as a moment, your opening ceremony in Atlanta, everybody remembers the Muhammad Ali.
Of course. Yeah.
This is such a massively underrated ticket, and they're not expensive. So I'm throwing this tip out there. Y'all better start buying these, because if you don't, I'm gonna buy them all, and then you're not gonna be able to get it, or not for a reasonable price. And then you knew that, you know, this is recent, and then also moment. Carl Lewis, ninth Olympic gold medal, autographed just a week and well, not even a week and a
Yep.
half ago. I just think, man, these things, like, people are sleeping on them. When you think about all of the athletes that we know that became great and did things through the Olympics, big deal. This is sort of a weird moment, but it's back to your local stuff. Here's your first NBA 60-point triple double. I was actually at this game, and in the third quarter realized how much James was scoring. And by the fourth quarter, I was like, holy crap, like, this guy may put a 60 nugget on these dudes. And so I was able to get it signed
Wow.
not too long ago. So this will be heading out. This is your first NBA 60-point triple double. Luka is the only other guy that's done it. And then last but not least, this was just another fun one. And I showed these off. Like, this from my Seeking days. So it's like your Rockets team from
Wow.
that year. What is this, like, 7? Yeah, so in my 96, 97, in my in-person Seeking, I got everybody who played for the team. And then it turned out that there's Mario Ellie. Here's your Charles Barkley. That, you know, Clyde had his own ticket, so that was an in-person then. And I just got the Akeem done at the
Wow.
show. For whatever reason, I was never able to run him down, kept forgetting to get it done. So I have my complete 96, 97 ticket stub Rockets team. So that, like, little fun stuff like that, I think can also be, it's a great way to sort of get into tickets and have, you know, we talked about the debuts, there's moments, but then when you're able to mix the moment with the personal, that's when I really think, man, you've hit the gold nugget of what it is that you want to connect. When you merge those together, like that's really when you can get excited about your collection. So hopefully we've given some people a few things to think about. Oh yeah, and then very last one, I promise. I also I like very much the recurring events, like I said. So here's my All-Star Game ticket signed by my guy
Charles,
Charles Barkley. Um,
a great
this
one.
is Charles doesn't do private signings, so you have to kind of get what people are able to get from him just walking around. So when I saw that, I was like, that was definitely a mega bid item. Where it's like, I got to have that, because when am I going to find another?
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. If you want to follow David on Instagram, he is a great follow. He is signed and slabbed on Instagram. As you can tell, the passion just oozes out of him when he talks about this, and that's why I really like him, and that's why I absolutely follow him. So, David, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Episode 3, we are out. That's it. Thank
guys.
you. Be well.